My name is Sophia Carter, and this was supposed to be the part of my life where everything finally made sense. I was 28, married to the boy I'd loved since we were 16, living in a beautiful townhouse on the quiet side of Westbridge. I had a marketing job I didn't hate, a dog named Pepper, and a mother who called me every Sunday like clockwork to ask if Daniel was still as handsome as ever. We weren't perfect, but we were good, or so I thought. It started on a Thursday night. One of those long, sleepy evenings where the house hums with stillness and the only light is the soft glow from a Netflix menu no one's watching. I had fallen asleep on the couch, curled up in one of Daniel's old college hoodies. The ones that still smelled faintly of him even after 1,000 washes. When I opened my eyes, the TV was off, and the room was dark except for the faint outline of Daniel standing in the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. He was whispering. Not the kind of whisper that meant he didn't want to wake me. No. It was lower, slower, intimate. It sent a shiver down my spine. I closed my eyes again, pretending to still be asleep. "Yeah. I miss you too," he murmured. A pause. Then a chuckle. A familiar chuckle. I strained my ears. The woman on the other end giggled, husky and soft. There was something about that laugh. My blood turned to ice. I knew that laugh. I had heard it my entire life. It was my mother's. If you are shocked by what you just heard, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Your thoughts matter. And if you want to stay in the loop for what's coming next, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a moment of this. I jolted upright, heart pounding in my chest. The sound stopped. Daniel turned, startled, but quickly plastered on his usual smile. "Hey, babe. You fell asleep on the couch again. Who were you talking to?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He blinked. "Work. Just a late project. At midnight." He shrugged, walking over to kiss my forehead like it was just another night in paradise. "Client in a different time zone. Come to bed." I let him guide me to the bedroom, but every step felt like I was sinking deeper into quicksand. That laugh. It couldn't be. It shouldn't be. But it echoed in my ears long after the house fell silent. And that night, as I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, I started to wonder, how well do I really know the people I love? The next few days were filled with small, quiet questions. Daniel started taking his phone into the bathroom. He changed his passcode. His work hours got longer, but he came home smelling like expensive cologne and guilt. I wanted to believe I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe that laugh was a coincidence. That maybe it was some client with a similar voice. Maybe my mind was twisting things in the fog of half-sleep. Then came the second sign. He left his laptop open on the dining table. Not unusual, but the screen blinked on when I passed by. There, nestled in his Google Maps history, was a location that made my stomach drop. The Orchid Suites. It was the boutique hotel downtown. Private. Discreet. The kind of place you went when you didn't want to be seen. I clicked it. Last visit. 3 nights ago. That same Thursday night. My hands were shaking as I opened the confirmation email still sitting in his inbox. Reservation for Victoria Holloway. My mother's name. That was when the floor beneath me cracked. The confrontation wasn't explosive. I walked into our bedroom while he was getting dressed for work. He was buttoning his shirt, humming under his breath. I was holding my phone with the hotel confirmation pulled up. "Where were you last Thursday night?" I asked. He glanced up. "Babe, I told you. Late meeting." "Why?" I turned the screen toward him. "So this wasn't you?" He looked at the email. His smile didn't falter. "Vic booked a room," he said casually. "Probably for some spa thing. You know how your mom is." I didn't blink. "At midnight? And you just happened to be near the same hotel." He came closer. "Sophia, don't do this. You know how you get sometimes. Overthinking." There it was. The gaslight. You're imagining things, he added gently. I love you. Your mom's been nothing but kind to me. You're letting your anxiety spiral. That word, anxiety, was his favorite weapon. He knew I had struggled with panic attacks in college. Knew I sometimes second-guessed myself to death. He used it now like a shield. But something in me was cracking open. A quiet voice whispering, "Don't trust him. Not this time." I nodded, pretending to accept the explanation. But inside, a storm was forming. That weekend, she came over. My mother. Victoria. She waltzed into our home like she always did, wearing heels too high for someone her age and a dress that clung to her body like it was painted on. Her hair was freshly blown out. Her lips painted a deep wine red. She leaned in to kiss my cheek. "Hello, sweetheart." I hugged her, but my arms felt stiff. Her perfume was strong. Too strong. And then it hit me. It was Daniel's favorite scent. I had bought it for myself 2 Christmases ago because he once said he liked how it lingered on my scarf. Now she wore it like armor. Like a taunt. She smiled over my shoulder. "Is Daniel home?" "He's out back." "Oh, good," she purred, walking in without waiting for an invitation. I watched her hips sway as she moved toward the sliding glass doors. And for a brief second, I saw something in her eyes when she glanced back at me. Not warmth. Not love. Challenge. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and stared at myself for a long time. Same brown eyes. Same wavy hair. Same body I'd had since college. But something was different now. Something colder. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't spiraling. They were lying. And that meant only one thing. The game had begun. He thought I wouldn't notice. That I'd keep believing the late-night calls and the late meetings. But I wasn't a girl anymore. I was a woman, one about to set fire to everything he thought was safe. And my first move? I was going to ask the one man who knew all her secrets. My stepfather. The thing about suspicion is that once it starts, it doesn't stop. It crawls under your skin, whispering doubts into every silence, twisting ordinary moments into minefields. I couldn't unhear her laugh on the phone. Couldn't forget that hotel reservation under her name. And I couldn't erase the way she looked at him that afternoon. Like he was hers and I was the stranger. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, curled in a tight ball, listening to Daniel breathe beside me. He slept like a man with nothing to hide. But I knew better now. So the next morning, I started looking. It was terrifying, how quickly I turned into a woman I didn't recognize. A version of myself I didn't even know existed. I started with the basics. Phone records, emails, credit card charges. Nothing obvious. Daniel was careful. Too careful. It made me nauseous, how meticulous he was. Like this wasn't his first betrayal. But he slipped up. Eventually, they always do. It was a Saturday afternoon. He'd gone to the gym, at least, that's what he claimed. I waited 10 minutes after he left, then went through his car. Glove compartment. Clean. Center console, mostly protein bars, an old cologne sample, and an iPhone charger. Then I checked under the passenger seat. That's where I found it. A receipt. Folded twice. Crumpled. Almost like it had been shoved there in a hurry. The Orchid Suites. Room 208. Guest name: Victoria Holloway. Date: last Thursday. I stood frozen, my hands trembling. It wasn't just the receipt, it was what was written on the back. In Daniel's handwriting, quick and messy, like a note meant to be read and tossed. Red lace. No talking. Just knock twice. I stared at those words until my vision blurred. Red lace. My mother did wear a red lace dress that day. No talking. Just knock twice. I put the receipt in my pocket. A piece of evidence. A weapon. Proof I wasn't crazy. Proof I was being betrayed by not one, but two people who were supposed to love me. That night, I confronted him. We were in the kitchen. I was stirring pasta. He was opening a bottle of wine like it was just another cozy dinner at home. "Daniel," I said quietly, "did you forget anything in your car?" He looked up, confused. "What?" I said, I repeated, more slowly this time. "Did you forget anything in your car?" His eyes narrowed. "No." "Why?" I reached into my sweater and slid the receipt across the counter toward him. He stared at it. Didn't touch it. Didn't even blink. "That's not mine," he said flatly. "Then why is your handwriting on it?" He leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "Sophia, this is getting insane." "Oh, I'm insane now?" He sighed, exasperated. "You're spiraling. You've been acting paranoid for days. You're picking fights. And now you're snooping through my car. I'm looking for the truth." He took a deep breath, lowering his voice like he always did when he wanted to sound reasonable. "You're letting your imagination run wild. Just because your mom's name is on a hotel receipt doesn't mean she was there with me." I laughed. It sounded sharp, ugly, bitter. "Oh. Did she loan you the room, Daniel? You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to trust me," he snapped. "But apparently that's too much to ask." "Trust?" I hissed. "Trust died the moment I heard you whispering sweet nothings to my mother." That silenced him. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then, he smiled. Smiled. "Sophia," he said softly, "you're tired. Stressed. You've always had a vivid imagination. Remember college? When you thought your professor was out to get you?" He was gaslighting me again, twisting my pain into delusion. I leaned in, voice ice cold. "If you think you can manipulate me into doubting what I know, you're not as smart as you think." He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because just then, the doorbell rang. It was my mother, Victoria. She stood in the doorway with her usual effortless grace, dressed in a black blouse tucked into silk slacks, sunglasses perched atop her perfect hair. She looked like she was about to host a fundraiser. "Darling," she said, kissing my cheek. "Surprise visit." She stepped in without waiting for a response, her heels echoing across the hardwood. I followed her with my eyes as she walked toward Daniel, who didn't flinch. Didn't look guilty. Just smiled and said, "Hey Vic." Vic. Vic. They were using nicknames now. She smiled back. "Long day." "Always." And then I noticed something else. Her perfume. My perfume. The same one Daniel used to beg me to wear when we were dating. The one he said made him want to tear my clothes off. The one I stopped wearing after he claimed it gave him headaches. Now she wore it like a badge of victory. Dinner was a circus act. The three of us sat at the table while I pushed food around my plate, my appetite long gone. They made small talk, laughing too loudly, exchanging glances that lingered too long. It felt like I was trapped in a surreal play where I was the only one who knew the lines were all lies. Victoria laughed at his jokes. Daniel complimented her earrings. I watched them, every cell in my body screaming. Then she leaned forward, her hand brushing his arm lightly. Too lightly. Too intimately. That was it. I stood. "Mom, can I speak with you for a moment?" She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Now?" "Yes. Upstairs." She hesitated, then followed me into the guest room. I shut the door behind us and turned to face her. "Are you sleeping with my husband?" She blinked, mouth falling open just enough to feign shock. "Excuse me. Don't play stupid, Victoria. I heard you. I saw the receipt." "I know." She didn't deny it. She didn't even pretend to be insulted. Instead, she smiled. That same smile she gave me the day I brought Daniel home for prom. The smile that said I win. "I never meant to hurt you," she said softly, stepping closer. I recoiled. "Don't." You don't understand, Sophia. He came to me. I didn't seduce him. It just happened. Bullsh asterisk T. You've always had this fantasy that Daniel is perfect. But he's not. He's a man. And he needed something you stopped giving him. That was the dagger. The twist of the blade. He loved me, I whispered. She tilted her head. Maybe he still does. But love doesn't stop need, darling. And neither of you are children anymore. I wanted to scream. Break something. Tear the silk blouse off her smug little body and throw her out of my house. But I didn't. I breathed. I remembered. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. She came into my house wearing the scent of my marriage, carrying a smirk that said she thought she'd already won. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I had a secret too. And the person I was about to turn to? He'd been waiting years for this moment. I left my mother standing in the guest room, her arms crossed like she had just won some perverse competition. She didn't even try to follow me when I walked out. That told me everything I needed to know. There was no guilt, no shame, only satisfaction. And Daniel. He sat in the living room watching ESPN, like nothing had happened. Like his world wasn't already burning and he was too arrogant, or too stupid, to smell the smoke. I went upstairs, locked the door, and opened my laptop. I needed help. Not a therapist. Not a lawyer. Not even a friend. No, I needed someone who knew her. Someone who had already survived her poison. Someone who had scars to match mine. And that someone was Marcus Holloway, my stepfather. Marcus had married my mother when I was 16. He was her second husband, 10 years younger, with graying temples and the kind of silence that made people uncomfortable. He ran a private security firm, something about asset protection and corporate intelligence, but I knew better than to ask too many questions. He never tried to be my father. Never forced a connection. But he always showed up. When I graduated college. When I bought my first car. When Daniel and I got married, Marcus wrote me a card that just said, "If he ever breaks your heart, you tell me." I never forgot that. Now, it was time to see if he meant it. His house was tucked into the hills on the edge of town. Modern, sleek, full of sharp lines and darker shadows. When I knocked, the door opened almost immediately. He looked the same. Salt and pepper beard trimmed to perfection. Slate gray eyes that never missed a thing. "Sophia," he said, surprise softening his features. "Can I come in?" He stepped aside wordlessly. The inside was like him. Clean, controlled, minimal. I stood in the foyer gripping my phone like it was a weapon. "You okay?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, I'm not." He led me to the kitchen. Poured bourbon into 2 tumblers. No ice. I stared at it, unsure of how to start. Then I blurted it out. "She's sleeping with Daniel." He didn't flinch. Didn't cough. Didn't drop the glass. He just took a sip. "I know." The words hit me like a freight train. "You, what?" He leaned against the counter, looking tired for the first time in years. "I've known for a while." I blinked, my voice catching. "And you didn't tell me?" "I wasn't sure you were ready to hear it." My breath caught in my throat. "Jesus. Marcus. You knew my husband was screwing my mother, and you just... what? Watched?" "No," he said quietly. "I recorded." I stared at him, the words bouncing in my head like echoes in a canyon. "What are you talking about?" He walked over to a locked drawer in his study and pulled out a hard drive. He handed it to me without ceremony. "I've been tracking her for years." My hands trembled as I took it. "Why?" He poured another 2 fingers of bourbon. "Because your mother is a predator, Sophia. And I stopped trusting her the day after our honeymoon." I sat down, hard. He kept going, his voice low, cold, methodical. "She's done this before. 3 times that I know of. With friends, employees, my business partner. She manipulates, seduces, then destroys. Why did you stay? He smiled bitterly. Because leaving her wouldn't have been enough. Women like Victoria don't just let go. I wanted to build a case strong enough to ruin her. That's when I realized something. Marcus didn't just hate her. He wanted revenge. I looked at the hard drive in my hand. And Daniel? I asked. He met my gaze. Daniel's nothing. Weak. Pathetic. She uses him because he's easy. Disposable. But you were never supposed to find out. A silence fell between us, heavy and dangerous. Then Marcus leaned forward, his voice just above a whisper. But now that you have, we can end this. That night, I watched the footage. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to. There they were, Daniel and my mother, caught in hotel hallways, locked in intimate, nauseating embraces. Her in a red lace dress, laughing into his neck. Him grabbing her like a man possessed. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I sat there, drinking bourbon straight from the glass, watching the fantasy I once called a marriage collapse frame by frame. Marcus sat beside me, silent. When it was over, I looked at him. What do we do? He gave me a long, unreadable look. That depends, he said. On what? On how far you're willing to go. I swallowed. Farther than they'd ever imagine. He nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting years to hear those words. Then he said something that made the hair on my neck stand up. She seduced me too. Before the wedding. I froze. What? He nodded. Right after we got engaged. She cornered me one night. Said she wanted to test my loyalty. I didn't take the bait. But it told me everything I needed to know. I stared at him, horrified. She's sick, I whispered. She's a narcissist, he corrected. And Daniel? He's just her puppet. But now we have the strings. We spent hours planning. Not just emotional revenge, but strategic destruction. This wasn't about rage anymore. This was about control. We would gather more proof. We'd bait them into slipping. And when the time came, we'd bring their whole world crashing down. Legally, financially, socially. I felt powerful. Cold. Electric. Then something strange happened. I reached for my glass, and his hand brushed mine. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. There was a pause. A breath. Something crackled between us that wasn't just pain or history. Something dangerous. He stepped back first, eyes unreadable. It's late. I stood, heart pounding. Yeah. He walked me to the door. Opened it. I turned back to face him, standing in the glow of the porch light. Thank you, I said. For believing me. For helping. His voice was low. Rough. You were never the one who needed fixing, Sophia. You just didn't know how broken they were. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel like a lifeline. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless. I felt armed. They thought I'd be too soft, too scared to fight back. But I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't the girl who cried in the dark. I was a woman, with evidence, allies, and fire in my blood. And now that Marcus had joined me, it was time to play dirty. Power is a strange thing. Once you taste it, even just a drop, it changes you. You start standing taller, smiling wider, calculating more. You realize you no longer have to beg for the truth, because you own it. And in the weeks that followed my night at Marcus's house, I stopped feeling like the broken wife. I started feeling like the executioner. Daniel noticed the change immediately. I woke up earlier than him. Got dressed with more intention. Lipstick. Heels. My hair styled, not for him, but for me. And I stopped asking questions. That part was important. It made him nervous. "Morning, babe," he said one day, watching me pour coffee like I hadn't found proof of him nailing my mother. I smiled. "Morning. You're in a good mood." "I am." He narrowed his eyes. "Why?" I met his gaze and let the silence stretch just a second too long. Then I winked. "You'll see." He watched me all the way to the door. Good. Let him wonder. That afternoon, I returned to Marcus's house. This time, I didn't knock. I walked in, closed the door behind me, and set my purse on the table. He was in the kitchen, slicing limes. He looked up without surprise. "Thirsty?" he asked. "For more than a drink." Something shifted in the air between us. Something electric and wrong and inevitable. I hadn't come here for just strategy. Not anymore. I came because I wanted control. I wanted to rewrite the narrative they thought they owned. And if that meant seducing the one man they both feared, so be it. Marcus placed a glass in front of me. "Bourbon. Neat." I took a slow sip. Then I said, "What would they do if they found out about us?" He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "They'd unravel," he said quietly. "They deserve to." A long pause. Then he moved closer. "This isn't revenge anymore," he said. "No," I whispered. "This is war." I reached out, touched the collar of his shirt. He didn't stop me. His hands grazed my waist, tentative at first, then certain. "You're sure?" he asked. I nodded. And just like that, the line we shouldn't cross dissolved into nothing. It was not soft. It was not romantic. It was dark, hot, desperate. Every touch was a weapon. Every gasp a declaration. I wasn't thinking about the girl I used to be. I wasn't thinking about the rules or the guilt or the 1,000 ways this could end. I was thinking about her face. My mother's face, when she realized I had taken something from her. Something she never thought I could reach. And Daniel, who'd spent years telling me I was safe, only to lie to my face in our own bed. They wanted chaos. I'd give them hell. The next morning, I found Daniel waiting in the kitchen. He was dressed already, too polished for a casual day. He had something to say. "Going somewhere?" I asked, pulling out a cup. He watched me carefully. "Just meeting with Marcus." I didn't flinch. "Oh." He nodded. He called me in. Something about the company's expense reports. He was lying. Marcus hadn't called him in. I knew because we planned it that way. "Sounds important," I said, sipping my coffee. "It is." He leaned forward on the counter. "You've been different lately." "How so?" "Confident. Distant. Like you know something." I tilted my head, keeping my smile soft. "Maybe I do." His jaw tightened. "Good. Let the tension grow." Later that day, Marcus and I met again, this time in the study. He had pulled up financial records on his computer. "This," he said, pointing to the screen, "is how your husband has been siphoning from my company." My blood went cold. He clicked through the files: offshore transfers, false invoices, travel reimbursements for meetings that never happened. Daniel wasn't just a cheater. He was a criminal. "He's been stealing from me," Marcus said calmly, "for over a year. And guess who signed off on half of it?" I stared at the digital signature. Victoria Holloway. My mother. Of course she did. They weren't just lovers, they were partners in crime. "Can you prove this?" I asked. He looked at me. "Sophia. I record everything." By nightfall, we had a plan. Step 1. Marcus would call Daniel in for a fake reconciliation meeting. Step 2. I would make Daniel believe I was ready to forgive him. Step 3. We would build the illusion of peace, just long enough to drop the noose. But first, we needed to twist the knife. So I did something bold. I started planting clues. I left Marcus's shirt in our laundry hamper. Just one. Subtle. The expensive black one he wore the night we crossed the line. Daniel found it. "Hey," he said that evening, holding it up. "Whose is this?" I blinked. "What?" "This shirt. It's not mine." I looked at it, pretending to be confused. "That's strange. Must have gotten mixed in with the dry cleaning." He didn't buy it. I saw it in his eyes. His mind started racing. I let it. Then, when he turned to walk away, I added, "You know, it smells familiar." He froze. Turned. "You okay?" I asked sweetly. He stared at me. Then dropped the shirt and walked out. Hours later, I heard them fighting. Daniel and Victoria. Screaming through the phone. "You're sloppy," he snapped. "She knows something." I pressed my ear to the door. "You said she was weak," he roared. Then a pause. Then quieter. "No. I'm not pulling out. We've come too far." "Pulling out of what?" "Money. The plan. Or something worse." When the call ended, he slammed the phone down so hard I thought it would shatter. Then came the words I didn't expect. "You're just like your mother," he hissed at me. I turned. "What did you say?" He stood there, jaw clenched, breathing hard. "You heard me." I stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "And you're just like every spineless man she's ever used." His face twitched. "You think you're in control now?" he asked. I smiled. "I know I am." Then came the slap. Not from him, but from behind. I spun around just in time to catch the sting across my cheek. Victoria. She was standing in the doorway, wild-eyed. "You little bitch," she snapped. But her voice faltered when Marcus appeared in the hallway behind me. And when she saw him, saw the way he stood beside me, close, protective, intimate, her face crumbled. That was the moment the power shifted. That was the moment she knew she'd lost a grip on everything. She raised her hand to hit me, but what she didn't expect was who would catch me. Marcus had chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. And now, the seduction was done. The trap was set, and all that was left was to spring it. There's a difference between knowing the truth and making others choke on it. Until now, Daniel and Victoria thought they were 2 steps ahead, safely hidden behind whispers, receipts tucked into shadows, lies whispered under moonlight. But I was done playing detective. It was time for a little theater. And I was ready to be the lead. The first domino fell on a quiet Tuesday morning. Marcus called Daniel into his office, just as planned. The conversation was casual, tense, but polite. Just enough corporate bravado to make Daniel think it was still business as usual. "What's going on?" Daniel asked, smoothing out his blazer like a nervous intern. Marcus didn't even look up. "We'll talk in a moment." Daniel sat, crossed one leg over the other. His fingers tapped a rhythm on the armrest. He hated silence, especially when he wasn't in control of it. Marcus finally looked up. "You know what I hate," he said, voice even. Daniel blinked. "Excuse me." "Thieves." A pause. 1 beat. 2. Daniel laughed. "A weak, transparent thing. You talking about accounting again?" Marcus slid a manila folder across the table. "You tell me." Inside were copies of every fraudulent invoice, falsified signature, and offshore deposit. Neatly printed. Organized. Time-stamped. Daniel's face drained of color. "I don't. This isn't." "Save it," Marcus cut in. "I could have fired you months ago. Called the cops. Frozen your accounts. But I didn't. You know why?" Daniel didn't answer. "Because you're not just an embezzler," Marcus said. "You're a coward. And I wanted to see just how low you'd go." He leaned forward. "And now I know." While they talked, I set my scene at home. I made sure the laundry room door was open, just enough for her to see the shirt again. Marcus's. I placed a wine glass on the kitchen counter, lipstick stained. But not mine. A scent she'd recognize immediately. Then I waited. At exactly 6:42 p.m., my mother arrived. Victoria always liked to be fashionably late, even when she wasn't invited. She breezed through the door with a forced smile. "Sophia, you called." I nodded, calm, controlled. "Yes. I thought it was time we had an honest conversation." She tilted her head. "About what?" "About you. Daniel. Marcus. Me." I could see it then, the flicker of nerves in her eyes. The calculation beginning. "I don't know what lies he's been feeding you." "Oh, it's not lies, Mother," I interrupted, slowly pouring wine into the tainted glass. "It's facts. Proof. Records. Video." Her jaw tightened. I held up the glass. "Cabernet." She stepped forward slowly, looking around. That's when she saw it. Marcus's shirt. Hanging just inside the laundry room. The same one he wore the night we burned down every line they tried to draw between us. She paled. "You're bluffing," she whispered. I smiled. "You taught me how." She slapped the glass out of my hand. Wine exploded across the marble like blood. Then, her voice shaking, she said it. "You're just like your father." Wrong move. I stepped forward, nose inches from hers. "No. I'm worse." Then the door swung open. Daniel stood there, eyes blazing, holding the folder Marcus gave him. He had just learned how much of a puppet he'd been. And now, he was ready to burn down the strings. "You ruined us," he snapped at Victoria. She turned. "Me. You followed me. You said she'd never find out. And you said you'd handle Marcus." They exploded, yelling, accusing, unraveling like two dogs fighting over a bone they both already chewed through. I just watched. Calm. Detached. Satisfied. Then Daniel turned to me. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? To make us look like monsters." "No," I said softly. "You made yourselves monsters. I just gave you the mirror." He took a step forward, veins bulging in his neck. "You think you're clever? Seducing Marcus? Turning him against her?" Victoria's head snapped toward me. "Wait, what did he say?" Daniel's eyes widened. "Oh, you didn't know?" The room froze. I was wondering why he was so quick to help her, Daniel hissed. Turns out she was helping him too. Or maybe he was just helping himself. Victoria turned to me, voice like glass. "You slept with him?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The silence was answer enough. Her face contorted. Anger. Betrayal. Disgust. The irony made me want to laugh. "How dare you?" she spat. "You dare me first," I said, my voice calm. "With my husband. In my house. In my bed. I made a mistake." "No," I cut in. "You made a choice." She stepped forward, finger raised. "You're broken." I smiled. "You broke me. I just learned how to like the cracks." Marcus entered then. Silent as always. He walked to my side, his presence grounding me like steel. Victoria stared at him. "Tell me it's not true." He didn't speak. She stepped closer. "Marcus." Still nothing. She slapped him. Hard. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he turned to Daniel. "You're fired. Pack your things." Daniel laughed bitterly. "You don't scare me anymore." Marcus leaned in. "You should be terrified." That night, the house was finally quiet. I stood at the kitchen sink, hands still trembling. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline of victory. Marcus poured 2 glasses of bourbon and joined me. "It's done," I said. "Not quite," he replied, sliding over a folder. Inside were legal documents. Divorce papers. Restraining orders. Financial disclosures. Everything to legally wipe them out. I stared at the signatures already filled in. He had done the work. He had made this real. I looked up at him. And I asked the question I had buried since that night in his bed. Why me? He sipped his drink. Because they underestimated you. And you didn't. He looked me dead in the eyes. Never. I could have screamed. I could have cried. But instead, I watched them turn on each other. And I learned something that night. You don't have to break people. You just have to hand them the pieces. And let them cut themselves. The morning after the explosion, the house was still. Like a battlefield after the war, blood still drying, bodies gone, but the scent of violence clinging to the air. Daniel was gone. Victoria, too. They hadn't even had the decency to stay and face what they'd created. But I didn't need another fight. Because I had already won. Now came the cleanup. I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair, watching my reflection like she was someone else entirely. This Sophia didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't ask why. She just smiled. Because she had nothing left to lose. And too much power to waste. Marcus called me just after 9 a.m. They're panicking, he said. Daniel's frozen his joint accounts. Victoria's trying to call in favors. I smiled. They won't get far, I replied. No. They won't. We agreed to meet at the office. It was time to sign the final pieces. Marcus's office was unusually quiet. The blinds were half drawn, letting strips of light fall across his mahogany desk. I sat across from him, the folder between us. Inside were the documents we'd spent weeks building. A cease and desist letter to Victoria, tied to slander and breach of privacy. Evidence files prepared for the press, should she or Daniel try to play the victim. Termination paperwork for Daniel, filed through legal to prevent future employment lawsuits. Financial restitution terms, leveraging the embezzlement to drain their shared assets. It was more than revenge. It was annihilation. I picked up the pen. You don't have to do all of it, Marcus said quietly. I looked at him. You think I should show mercy? He hesitated. I think you should do what brings peace. I considered that for a long second. Then I signed. Every last page. Later that day, Daniel showed up at the office. Unannounced. Uninvited. I was in Marcus's conference room, sipping espresso, heels kicked up on the chair opposite me. He barged in like a man trying to reclaim something he never really owned. You want to destroy me, he said, tossing a document on the table. Fine. But don't pretend you're any better. I didn't move. Look me in the eye, he snarled. Tell me this isn't personal. It's not, I said flatly. It's justice. He laughed bitterly. You think sleeping with your stepfather makes you powerful? No, I said calmly. But it made me dangerous. He flinched. I stood up and walked toward him slowly. Let me explain what power really looks like, Daniel. Power is when you know every one of your enemy's secrets, and you choose when to use them. His nostrils flared. You were nothing but a distraction, I continued. A stepping stone for a woman who let herself be stepped on too long. He sneered. You think Marcus really cares about you? I don't care, I said. Because I don't need anyone to save me anymore. He took one last look at me, then turned and walked out. No threats, no apologies. Just silence. The silence of a man who finally understood that he had lost to someone smarter, colder, and stronger. That night, I got a call from Victoria. Blocked number. Of course. I let it ring 5 times before I answered. Her voice was shaky, like she'd been crying. Sophia. I waited. I never wanted this to go this far. I didn't speak. You've made your point. Still, silence. I'm asking, just as your mother, can we stop this? Please. I took a breath. Then I said, no. She choked on her reply. You're ruining everything. No, I said. I'm reclaiming everything. You just don't know the difference. She tried to speak again, but I ended the call. That was the last time I ever heard her voice. The next morning, I received confirmation. Daniel had been disbarred from the business world in our state. Victoria's social circle had imploded, her affairs now gossip column headlines. Marcus had locked down every remaining asset they once touched. It was done. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. There's a quiet kind of victory in knowing you'll never be fooled by someone's smile again. Later that week, Marcus invited me to his lake house. Just the two of us. Far from the wreckage. We sat on the back deck, drinking wine as the sun set in a wash of gold and amber. I thought you'd be gone by now, I said. I thought you'd be angrier, he replied. I was. I'm just better at hiding it now. He looked at me for a long moment. I should have told you the truth sooner. I wouldn't have believed you. Silence. Then I said it. Do you regret what we did? He didn't answer right away. No, he finally said. Do you? I looked out at the lake. The water was calm. So was I. Not a second of it. I moved into my own place, an apartment on the top floor of a building that faced east. No photos on the walls. No rings on my fingers. Just space. Clean and honest. Sometimes at night, I still dream about the moment I found that receipt. The lies. The perfume. Her laugh. But now, I don't wake up crying. I wake up smiling. Because they thought they could break me. Instead, I burned them down. I used to think love was forever. Now I know some people don't deserve love. They deserve silence. And the sound of the door slamming behind you. Forever. It wasn't over. I thought cutting them off, legally, financially, socially, would be enough. I thought exposure was the final move. But people like Daniel and Victoria don't go quietly. They don't sit in the ruins of their empires and weep. They reload. They retaliate. And when that retaliation came, it didn't look like a lawsuit or a tabloid hit piece. It looked like a shattered rear window on my car. It looked like threatening emails from untraceable accounts. It looked like my apartment door left ajar when I was sure I'd locked it. I stood in the doorway of my home one night, staring at the half-inch gap between the frame and the bolt. My fingers trembled as I pushed the door open with the tip of my keys. Inside, nothing looked touched. No items missing. No mess. But something in the air had changed. The kind of stillness that doesn't come from peace, but from presence. Someone had been here. And they wanted me to know it. Marcus was on the phone within 5 minutes. Your locks were changed last week, he said after tracing the maintenance logs. No record of who ordered it. That's not possible. I'm having someone sweep the place tomorrow. Stay with me tonight. I hesitated. He sensed it. Sophia, this isn't them trying to fix anything. It's them trying to break you before you break them further. I didn't argue. I packed a bag and drove into the night. When I got to Marcus's house, I didn't go to the guest room. I went straight to his bedroom. He said nothing, just pulled back the sheets and made space for me beside him. We didn't touch. Didn't speak. But the silence between us was warmer than any conversation I'd had in years. The next morning, the security team confirmed it. Someone had tampered with the locks. No prints. No cameras triggered. Professional. Daniel didn't just want to scare me. He wanted to remind me that he could. And if Daniel was the fist, Victoria was the whisper behind it. Because that same morning, an anonymous blog post went viral. High society husband leaves wife for mother-in-law. Daughter retaliates with stepfather affair. Welcome to the Carter family circus. Photos. Quotes. Even distorted audio clips. It had Victoria's style all over it, her subtle cruelty, her penchant for public humiliation masked as concern. The court of public opinion was turning. Some people sympathized with me. Others called me unhinged. I let them. Because every storm looks like chaos, until the lightning strikes in your direction. I met Marcus that night in his office. We sat across from each other, my phone between us, screen glowing with the article. "They're escalating," I said. "They're desperate," he replied. "Then let's give them what they want." His brows lifted. "What do you have in mind?" I smiled. "A fake reconciliation." He leaned back. "Explain." "I'll invite Daniel to meet. Somewhere private. I'll tell him I want to talk. Maybe try again. Appeal to his ego. And when he shows up, I'll have a friend there. With a camera. A recorder. Witnesses. Proof of threats, manipulation. Maybe even a confession." Marcus considered this. "You're using yourself as bait." "No," I said. "I'm using his ego." We picked the location carefully, a private club lounge that Daniel used to frequent. One of the only places he still felt powerful. I sent the message from an untraceable email. "Meet me Thursday. I want to talk. Just us. No lawyers. No Marcus. One chance to fix what's left." He replied within 30 minutes. "I knew you'd come around." Perfect. Thursday night, I wore red. The same shade Victoria once wore when she went behind my back. I sat at the candlelit booth, a single glass of wine untouched in front of me. The recorder in my purse blinked quietly. My friend, Lacey, sat at the bar nearby, dressed like a guest, earpiece in place, recording everything on her phone under the table. And when Daniel walked in, he was cocky, confident. But beneath that, rage. He slid into the booth across from me, not bothering to greet me. I was wondering how long it would take you to crawl back. I tilted my head. "You think this is crawling?" His jaw flexed. "You destroyed my life, Sophia. My job. My reputation. You destroyed mine first. Because your mother was more of a woman than you ever were." I blinked slowly. There it was. I smiled, cold and deliberate. "And yet here you are. Still wanting me. You don't understand what you've started," he hissed. "Marcus isn't who you think he is." I leaned forward. "Tell me then." He glanced around, lowered his voice. "He's not just in security. He launders money, pays off officials. The files I took, he's terrified of them getting out." The blood drained from my face. "Because that wasn't part of the plan. You stole files from Marcus?" I whispered. His eyes glinted. "And if I go down, I take him with me." My hands trembled slightly, out of view. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was warfare. But I kept my face neutral. "I just wanted closure," I said quietly. He leaned in. "You're not getting closure. You're getting buried." He stood abruptly and walked out. Lacey rushed to me moments later. "We got it all." That night, I played the tape for Marcus. His face didn't change. Not until Daniel mentioned the files. Then a shadow passed over his expression. "What did you keep from me?" I asked. Marcus poured a drink. Sat down slowly. "There are things about my past that don't belong in courtrooms, Sophia." But Daniel never knew what he was looking at. I stared at him. "Are you in danger?" "I'm always in danger. But am I?" He looked at me then, full of something soft and terrifying. "No. I'll never let that happen." He thought he was setting a trap for me. But the only thing Daniel walked into was his own grave. And if he thought this was over, he hadn't met the version of me willing to bury the past, along with anyone still holding on to it. There's a moment after every explosion when the world goes quiet. Not peaceful, paralyzed. As if everything is holding its breath. That's where I was. Suspended between the moment Daniel confessed and the moment the walls started caving in. Because while I'd built a perfect trap, I hadn't anticipated just how far Daniel would go to escape it. And I never expected Marcus's secrets to become my next nightmare. The first warning came the next morning. Lacey called in a panic. Someone's been to my apartment. My blood turned to ice. What? I found my back door broken. Nothing taken. But they left this. She sent a picture. A single red envelope. Inside, a photo of me. From last night. Sitting at the club with Daniel. And on the back, a handwritten note. Careful who you trust, sweetheart. Some traps bite back. I rushed to Marcus's house. He was already standing outside, pacing the driveway, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw me, he hung up. They're watching you, I said, out of breath. Watching us. He nodded grimly. I know. What the hell did Daniel mean about your past? He was silent. Then, come inside. The living room was quiet. Tense. Marcus poured us both a drink, even though it was barely 10 a.m. He didn't sit right away. I used to work in corporate security, he began. That part's true. But some of our clients were dangerous. Money laundering. Asset protection for people who couldn't afford to get caught. Dirty politicians. Businessmen with blood on their hands. I swallowed hard. And you? I was the cleaner, he said. I didn't kill anyone. But I erased things. Records. Surveillance. Proof. He finally sat. I left that world when I married your mother. I thought I could be normal. But when she started sleeping around, ruining lives, dragging you into it, I realized, monsters raise monsters. I stood there, barely breathing. And Daniel? I asked. What files did he take? Enough to get me arrested, or worse. I should have walked away right then. But I couldn't. Because I had come too far. I had sacrificed too much. And Daniel. He had crossed the line from petty betrayal to psychological terrorism. He needed to go down. But now, I couldn't just take him down with the truth. Because the truth was laced with poison. Marcus's poison. And if I exposed Daniel, I might drag Marcus with him. I was trapped in my own revenge. Later that night, I got a text from a blocked number. One more chance. Meet me. No cops. Just you. If you don't, your little friend gets hurt. Attached was a photo of Lacey, leaving her gym. Completely unaware she was being watched. I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. This wasn't about love anymore. This was war. I showed Marcus the message. He stared at it, then looked at me. We don't have a choice, I said. We go to the police. No, he snapped. If you bring in cops, you bring in everything. He paced. He's bluffing, he added. I turned on him. He knew where I was. He broke into Lacey's place. He is not bluffing. Marcus looked at me with something new in his eyes. Panic. Not for himself. For me. What if I talk to him? I asked. Alone. No. I can handle him. He shook his head. It's not him I'm worried about. It's what you'll have to become to beat him. I stood up, every muscle in my body vibrating. I already became it, Marcus. I agreed to meet Daniel. Neutral ground. An old parking garage downtown. No lights. No cameras. He stood by his car when I arrived, arms folded, a smug grin stretched across his face. You came. I'm not afraid of you, I said. You should be. I took a step closer. Why drag Lacey into this? He laughed. Because you're a coward. You hurt people from the shadows. I do it right out in the open. And what do you want? He pulled out a flash drive. Everything you think you know about Marcus is in here. He's dirtier than your mother ever was. He's been playing you since day one. I didn't flinch. I want immunity, he continued. You delete the footage. You walk away. Or this goes to the press, the police, everyone. You're bluffing, I said. He smiled wider. Am I? I stepped forward. And I slapped him. Hard. His face snapped to the side. He turned back to me, red blooming across his cheek. You shouldn't have done that. I should have done it years ago. I walked away, the click of my heels echoing through the garage like gunshots. Back at Marcus's, I played the audio for him. Daniel's confession. The threats. The flash drive. Marcus sat silently, staring into the fire. Then he stood and disappeared down the hall. When he returned, he had a single object in his hand. A gun. He placed it on the coffee table between us. This ends now, he said. They pushed me, cornered me, threatened everything I had left. So I did the only thing I could. I chose violence. Because when the truth turns toxic, the only cure is fire. You can only chase a ghost so long before it turns around and bites. Daniel wasn't just a ghost. He was a wound that refused to heal, a splinter wedged so deep, I forgot what it felt like to live without pain. But I didn't come this far to be haunted. I came to bury the past. And if it screamed while I did it, even better. Marcus's gun sat on the table between us like a sleeping snake. I stared at it. You can't be serious, I said. I am, he replied. If Daniel leaks those files, he doesn't just take me down, he takes you with me. Everyone you care about. I paced the room. I didn't start this to cover up crimes, I snapped. I started this because they betrayed me. He stood slowly. And now they're threatening your life. Your friends. That's not betrayal anymore, Sophia. That's war. I hated how calm he sounded. How right he sounded. But I couldn't let this end with a bullet. I wanted Daniel ruined, not martyred. I wanted him broken, not buried. That night, I called Lacey. Get out of town, I told her. Go to that cabin your aunt owns. Don't tell anyone where you're going. I'll call you when it's over. She didn't argue. That's how I knew she was scared, too. I returned to my apartment. What was left of it? Furniture overturned. Dresser drawers open. Photos torn. Not stolen. Just destroyed. I stepped around the chaos, found the one frame that had survived. Me and my mom years ago. Smiling like strangers. I threw it in the trash. There was no going back. Daniel texted the next morning. Meet me again. Last time. You bring Marcus, I bring the files. No cops. You want this done, we do it face to face. I stared at the screen. I didn't respond. Instead, I showed the message to Marcus. Where? He asked. I handed him the address. He reached for the gun. I caught his wrist. No guns, I said. Not this time. His eyes burned into mine. He's dangerous. So am I. We met Daniel at a crumbling warehouse just outside the city. Long abandoned, half-eaten by rust and silence. I wore black. Marcus. Gray. Daniel waited near a dusty desk with a laptop and the flash drive beside it. Well, well, he grinned. The lovers arrive. I ignored him. What do you want? He gestured to the drive. This. It's insurance. You destroy all evidence of our little affair, videos, recordings, threats, and I disappear. You never see me again. Marcus stepped forward. You think I'm stupid? I think you're desperate, Daniel said smoothly. Then he turned to me. You can still have your life back, Sophia. Just walk away. Be smart. Let me go. I took a step forward. Then another. Until I was inches from him. Here's the difference between you and me, Daniel, I said softly. You ruin lives because you're weak. I ruin lives because I finish what I start. Then I reached into my coat pocket. Not a gun. A USB stick. I plugged it into the laptop on the table, and in seconds, the screen displayed a video. Daniel threatening me in the parking garage. confessing to stealing Marcus's files, admitting he'd been watching Lacey. His face paled. Where did you? You're not the only one who knows how to plant cameras, I said. He lunged for the laptop. Marcus was faster. He slammed Daniel back against the desk, holding him there, breathless. You're done, Marcus growled. One word, and this goes to every news station in the city, every investor, every regulator. Daniel spat blood onto the ground. I'll kill you, he hissed. I'll kill both of you. Marcus pulled back. Then, without warning, Daniel reached into his coat. I saw the glint before I registered what it was. A knife. He lunged. But he didn't reach Marcus. He reached me. Time slowed. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. Because Marcus stepped between us. And the blade sank. Not into me, but into his side. He grunted, staggered back, eyes wide. Daniel froze for half a second, realizing what he'd done. Then he bolted. I ran to Marcus as he slumped against the desk, clutching his side. Stay with me, I whispered. He smiled, bloody, half-conscious. You okay? He murmured. I nodded, pressing my hand over the wound. You saved me, I choked. Of course I did. Sirens wailed in the distance. Lacey had called them the moment I left. I looked into Marcus's eyes. And I saw peace. Not fear. Because even if this was the end, he'd finally done something right. Daniel was caught 3 blocks away, blood-stained, wild-eyed, screaming that we were framing him. They didn't believe a word of it. The flash drive was turned over. The police reviewed the footage. They had enough to charge him with embezzlement, assault, and criminal harassment. He was done. Forever. Marcus survived. Barely. He was released after 2 surgeries and several days in recovery. I stayed with him the entire time. We didn't talk about the files. Or the gun. Or what could have been. We just existed. Together. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. From Victoria. It was short. I was weak. I lost everything. I hope you're happy. Mom. No apology. Just guilt in cursive. I didn't write back. I threw the letter in the fireplace and watched the flames consume it. The past didn't own me anymore. I stood at the edge of the city one morning, watching the sun rise over glass towers and broken bridges. I had no ring. No mother. No vengeance left to taste. But I had myself. And that was enough. They tried to ruin me. But I'm still here. Stronger. Colder. Free. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the only way out is through the fire. People think revenge ends with the last blow. They're wrong. It ends with the silence. The kind where no one calls anymore. No footsteps at the door. No apologies. No excuses. Just quiet. The kind of silence that feels like freedom. And loneliness. And maybe a little peace. 3 months after Daniel's arrest, I stood alone in my new apartment. A high-rise with no ghosts. No memories clinging to the walls like smoke. Just sunlight pouring through clean windows and furniture I picked out myself. No velvet drapes. No scent of my mother's perfume. No Daniel. Just me. I pressed a key into the final drawer of my dresser. The last item I unpacked. Marcus had given it to me weeks ago. An unmarked USB drive. The originals, he'd said, handing it to me in the hospital. Everything Daniel tried to use against us. I held it now in my hand, wondering what to do with it. Keep it. Use it someday. Or burn it. Like everything else. That morning, I met Marcus at the coffee shop down the street. He looked better. Healthier. The scar was still there, peeking above the collar of his shirt. A reminder. But he didn't hide it. He wore it like armor. Late as always, he teased. Surprised you waited, I said. I always wait for you. That used to scare me. Now it just made me sad. We talked like old friends. Nothing more. We didn't touch. Didn't lean too close. The wound between us hadn't healed. It had just closed. We could leave, he said quietly. Start over. New city. New names. I stirred my coffee. You really think we'd be different somewhere else? He shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. He pulled out a small envelope and slid it toward me. Plane tickets. 2 of them. No destination listed. Just in case, he said. I didn't take the envelope. Not yet. Because this wasn't about escape anymore. This was about who I wanted to be. And I still didn't know. That night, I stood on the balcony, watching the city bleed into twilight. My phone buzzed. A new message from a new number. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. I always believed in you. I didn't know the name. Didn't respond. I turned the phone off. Some ghosts are better left uninvited. I lit a candle. Set the USB drive on the counter beside it. Watched the flame flicker. It would be so easy. Just one drop of wax. One match. One breath. And it would all vanish. The proof. The past. The pain. But instead, I placed it in a safe. Not because I needed it. Because I'd earned the right to choose. And one day, maybe, I'd give it to someone else who needed their own fire to start. A week later, I mailed a letter. No return address. Just a card, folded and blank inside. Except for one sentence. You didn't break me. You made me bulletproof. I didn't sign it. But I know Victoria would read it. And understand. As for Daniel, he was sentenced to 8 years for fraud, harassment, and attempted assault. I didn't attend the trial. Didn't need to. Justice isn't always a gavel. Sometimes, it's knowing someone's future will never be bigger than their cell. And Marcus. He called me 3 days before I left the city. No pressure. No begging. Just a question. Will you come with me? I paused. Then answered honestly. Not yet. I stand at the train station now. Not running. Not hiding. Just moving. A suitcase by my side. A one-way ticket in my hand. No plan. No man. Just freedom. And the woman I became when the ashes cleared. Once, I believed love was the most dangerous thing in the world. But now I know better. It's hope. Because hope will make you stay too long, fight too hard, bleed too deep. But I'm not bleeding anymore. I'm rebuilding. And this time, I'm not saving anyone but me. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Would you choose love or loyalty? And don't forget to subscribe for more true secrets every day.